Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tonka Talk. I'm Natalie Webster, and today I'm talking to Mikki Huntington in the series that we're doing for Veterans Day. Welcome, Mikki.
Thank you so much for having me, Natalie. It's an honor to be here.
You're a local resident in the Excelsior area. You've lived in this area for an incredibly long time,
It's been
right?
about 12 years, I think. Yeah,
Yeah, and your husband, his family's from the area, and they've been
absolutely.
here even
So,
longer.
exactly. My husband was born and raised here and went away to serve in the military. So, we're both veterans and just decided to come back here and make this our home. So, that's been 12 years.
Well, I'm glad you're here. And many of you might recognize Mikki because she's one of what I refer to as a super volunteer. She's done so much with the chamber, and you've done many fundraisers as well. Now, Mikki, tell me, what branch of the military were you in and when?
So, I served in the U.S. Army. So, I joined right out of high school at 17 years old. I joined the Army Reserve for about 5 years. And then I went to ROTC. I was already going to college. So after finishing ROTC, I went on active duty. So full time in the US Army for another 20 years, for a grand total of 25 years.
Wow, that's amazing. And it makes sense that you started so young, because looking at you, it'd be like, well, were you, did they let you in when you were 12?
You're so nice to say that.
Now, if I remember from an earlier conversation I had with you some time ago, did you flew helicopters?
I did. So when I was enlisted in the Army Reserve, I was what's called a 71 Lima, which is a military occupational specialty called administrative assistant or administrative specialist. So just typing, right? And then I went through ROTC and I had some folks tell me, oh, you'll never get aviation, so don't even bother asking. So of course I had to ask, and got selected for Army Aviation and flew helicopters for about 10 years.
Wow. What was that like?
You know, I tell people a lot that the helicopter doesn't know who you are or what you are, what gender, what race, ethnicity, how tall or short. You just fly it, right? You just take the controls and you fly it. And it was such an incredible opportunity to kind of push myself outside my comfort zone and do something I never thought I was going to do. But yeah, 10 years of flying, I have a little over 1,100 hours of helicopter flight time.
Wow. Did you do anything with aviation after the military?
I did not. I shouldn't say I didn't. I do support David. He got his private pilot license. David is my husband. So he got his private pilot license. And so we go fly sometimes together. But for me personally, I got to be honest, it costs a lot of money to rent a helicopter because there's no parachute. Like it's once, you're either up there or you're not. So the insurance is really expensive. And so I just haven't had the opportunity. But if anybody has a Huey helicopter out there who wants to let me fly, let me know.
Well, if the zombie apocalypse ever really does happen, I'm going to find a helicopter and I'm going to track you down.
There you go. I'm right there for you.
It's kind of almost good to know somebody who can fly a helicopter, just in case.
Just in case.
Now, can you tell me, with all your years in the military, after leaving the military, did your experience play any role in what you went on to do? Were there skills that were helpful with, because you went on to work in education, right?
Right. So I work in higher education now. I am a faculty member at 2 local colleges. I teach political science and global studies, and I love what I'm doing now. And just to kind of rewind, several decades now, I actually grew up and wanted to be a teacher my whole life. I kind of segued into the military because I wanted to serve our country. I needed to frankly earn some money for college. And so that was one way of knocking out both of those goals with one role. But everything that I gained from my experience in the military definitely translates into the job that I have now in higher education. And when you think about the population, the majority population of the people in the military, there's a lot of young people there, right? 18 to 24-year-old-ish. Well, that's the similar population I have in my classroom. So in terms of the demographics, in terms of the age group, it's very, very similar. In the military, we call it training. A little bit different, but there's definitely skills that transfer over into academia and teaching and learning.
You have a twin sister.
I do.
And she was in the military as well, right?
She was. So I served for 25 years in the Army. My sister served 20 years in the Air Force, and our father served 20 years in the Navy.
Wow, that's amazing.
So how
That's
many
quite
years
the
total is
family.
that?
It's like 60 years. I
It's a
mean, you're
lot.
talking
Yeah, yeah. So it's a
60
military
years.
family.
Now, Veterans Day is coming up, which is why we're doing this series on Tonka Talk, talking to local people in the Lake Minnetonka area who are veterans. What is it you think about, or what is it that you would share with people about Veterans Day that you would want them to know about it?
Well, I'll start by just saying thank you, Natalie, for your willingness and for inviting us to share our stories. I mean, really amplifying veterans' voices and veterans' stories is such an important part of strengthening that civilian military understanding. But the one thing that I would just encourage all of us to do in our community is to just consider taking one step to acknowledge Veterans Day, whether it's, going to a Veterans Day event or visiting a veteran community or an event. You can even sit down and have a cup of coffee with a veteran and just, ask them about their military experience and really take the time to listen to what they are willing to share. And so I just invite anybody who is listening to take some time to get to know us as veterans. And even as a veteran, I just want to say thank you to the veterans that came before me, the veterans who are currently serving, and their families, because it's definitely a family effort. And so I encourage everybody to just take a few moments to reflect on what the meaning of the day truly is.
It's been fascinating for me to talk to veterans locally, and it just amazes me how many of the ones that I've spoken to have found strength during their time in the military that have really been strength outside of the military, where they've been able to take that experience. And another common theme that I've noticed, which I've, having seen you around and known you for years too, I think it applies to you as well. I've noticed that their desire to really still make an impact, to take advantage of opportunities that are available, because, you showed up and gave all these years of service to make those opportunities possible. And it's been really neat seeing and learning that perspective from veterans, that I feel like veterans have even more of an appreciation of the opportunities that we have in our country, that gratitude there. That's something that's just been a common theme in each of these interviews that I've done. It's just really blown my mind.
Yeah, and thank you so much for highlighting that, because that is, I think, a strength of military service, because it is service that is beyond your individual self. You're serving for your country, for your fellow citizens. And so, especially this week when we're talking about the local elections or the midterm elections, and the importance of supporting and defending our Constitution, the importance of protecting our freedoms and our democracy. It's that selfless service that veterans and their family members are willing to give and do for our country. And so I appreciate that you've picked up that theme. We talked a little bit about me currently serving as an educator, and I am equally proud of my service in uniform in the military as I am in my ongoing service in the classroom, right? And so we all have an opportunity to serve and to find some way to give back to our community. And I'm so honored and privileged to have the chance to continue to do that as an educator.
Do you share with your students when you're teaching, when you're in that academia world, about your time in the military? Does it ever come up?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's not something that I lead with. I'm certainly not out there to say you should join the military or you should think a certain way, but it is part of who I am. And so I feel that it's important for me to share, and also for them to share with me too. I do have veterans and students who have military connections in my classes as well. And so for us to be able to share our multiple stories is really key. So going back to your willingness to share this multitude of stories of veterans, there are so many of us, and we all have unique experiences and unique stories. And so let's celebrate those veterans' voices. Let's learn from and with those veterans' voices and build those connections together.
I could not agree more. Is there anything that stands out to you from your time in the military that maybe either it's something that you just really enjoyed or that completely surprised you?
I'll share two things. The first one is a little bit of a surprise, which is just the number of opportunities that the military has to offer. I'm just me, and I had an opportunity through the military to serve in the White House as part of my career in the military. And who would have thought that Mikki from, little town America actually got an opportunity to serve at the White House. And so I served about 2 years in Washington, D.C., which is just an incredible experience that I have had the opportunity to have through my military service. And then the other piece is really about what's most important, what matters most. And for some folks, it's their pride of serving in uniform. For other folks, it's giving back in that service to country. For me, it's literally the veteran to my left and my right. Really that bond that we form with our fellow military service members, it still carries forward even today. I had an opportunity to attend a local Veterans Day recognition event, and we still right away have that something in common, that intangible that connects us, and had such great conversations. And so just the opportunities that the military offered was something that was very surprising, and that I'm grateful for, but also the connections that I created, that I had, and that I continue to maintain today, which I just value so very much.
You've kind of had 2 or 3 lifetimes within one lifetime with your experience in the military. And I can only imagine too, that during that 20 years or so, you've done different things within the military itself. Did you meet your husband in the military or prior?
I did. So we met in the military when we were stationed together overseas. So I like to joke and say that I married into the South Lake Minnetonka area because my husband's originally from here, but we met overseas while serving in the military.
And then he brought you back to Minnesota.
Actually, honestly, I'm the one who loved Minnesota and said, let's move back to Minnesota. And he said, are you serious? So it ended up working out. I mean, we are grateful to be part of this community, and hope to continue to give back in whatever small ways that we can.
Well, you both do just a wonderful job. I love seeing you both out and about. It always is so inspiring to me because you're both just, I can't picture you or your husband without seeing you both smiling.
How can you not smile and be in this awesome community? So again,
exactly.
just grateful for you continuing to amplify not only our community stories, but today in particular, veterans' voices. So thank you.
Well, I feel like it's the least smallest thing I can do. And again, I'm just amazed by the stories. And I've spoken with some veterans that didn't want to necessarily do an interview on camera. So I really appreciate you being willing to be able to do it. But just hearing their stories still, is just so amazes me what they've done and how, like I said, how they were able to take that experience and use it throughout their life. And I've spoken to people who were in the military for just a few years, but it still had such a positive impact on them that they carry today. And a lot of it was also extremely hard at the same time, depending on who you speak to. But again, that common denominator of that pride of service and being willing to continue to be helpful within your community and do what you can, I think is just amazing.
And I'm just going to acknowledge too that everyone's military experience is going to be different, right? Particularly for those who are combat veterans, even depending on what generation they might have served. Each of our experiences are unique. Each of us had different roles and different jobs in the military. And so that's why I think it's so important to share as many of these stories and many of these veterans' voices as we can, so that we can continue to strengthen that relationship building and that understanding between civilians and military and families as well.
Agreed. Well, thank you so much again for coming on and sharing your story with us. If you see Mikki or her husband out and about, make sure you say hi. You're going to see them all over Excelsior at most community events and often even volunteering. So again, thank you, Mikki. I really appreciate it. And thank you for your amazing years of service as well.
Thank you so much for having me. And I just want to acknowledge my fellow veterans and their families on this Veterans Day. You're in my thoughts, and huge gratitude to each and every one of you.
I love that. Everyone else, I will talk to you later.